Hello everyone, Mr. B coming at you with the Origins and Beliefs of Buddhism Quiz Study Guide Review. So the Origins and Beliefs of Buddhism quiz is on your planners coming up. You'll have 2 days to complete the quiz, and so 2 days to prepare and take the quiz. So let's get to the review. Of course, we're going to start at the Social Studies message board, and we're going to navigate to the Study Guides page right here. We're on Unit 6, we'll go to Unit 6, and you'll see I have both the quiz and the unit test study guides here. So if you'd like to get an early start or take a sneak peek at the unit test that's coming up in a few weeks, you can check out the Early Civilizations of India unit test study guide right here. But for our purposes, we're going to click on the Origins and Beliefs of Buddhism quiz study guide right there. That will open the study guide, and this is my copy of the study guide. In order to type in it, you're going to need to make a copy for yourself. So in order to do that, if you have Google Docs or if you have Gmail and you want a Google Doc, you go to File, make a copy, and then hit OK. You can rename it if you want. If you want to add your name in there, I might suggest you replace the copy of, put your name in there, Joe Smith's Origins and Beliefs of Buddhism quiz study guide. Hit OK. It'll open the study guide in a new window, and that'll be your copy. So again, File, make a copy, hit OK. That's if you have Google Docs. That's if you have Gmail and you want a Google Doc. If you prefer Microsoft Word, File, Download Microsoft Word. There you go. Once you hit it, it'll download the document, and you'll be able to type in it, save it just like you would any Microsoft Word document. So there you go. File, Download Microsoft Word. All right, so the study guide has 10 questions. Let's get to it. It shouldn't be a very long video. Question number 1, what geographic feature separates the Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia? So a subcontinent is a landmass that sticks out into the ocean, kind of separate from the larger landmass, right? So if you see India, it's connected to Asia, it's part of Asia, but the vast majority of India sticks out into the ocean, so that is the subcontinent. So then what geographic feature separates India from the rest of Asia? What is that geographic feature to the north of India that kind of separates it? That would be the Himalaya Mountains. So the Himalaya Mountains are home to Mount Everest, the largest and tallest mountain in the world. And yeah, that Himalaya mountain range separates India from the rest of Asia. So it creates this huge natural border and barrier. Question number 2, what are the Upanishads and who wrote them? The Upanishads are a collection of writing written in Sanskrit that contain Hindu philosophy. They were written by gurus. So Hinduism and the Upanishads, it wasn't developed by just one person. It was kind of a collection of people that evolved over time. You have these gurus, they're thinkers, philosophers, teachers, and they kind of developed this religion of Hinduism, and they would meditate and they would talk about it and write about it. And eventually somebody collected these writings and they put them all together, and that became the Upanishads. So Upanishads are a collection of Hindu philosophy written by various gurus throughout the years. Question number 3, what is the caste system? Discuss 4 ways in which the caste has changed in India. So the caste system is a very rigid social hierarchy where basically you were born into a caste, and that caste determined things like what kind of job you can get, where you can live, who you can marry. It was very rigid. So the caste system is something that's still in place, but it's changed a lot since its inception, right? So in the beginning, 4 ways it's changed. In the beginning, the social classes were based on your birth. You were born into a caste, and that's the caste that you lived in until you died. You could not change castes. Eventually, castes were prominent, but they started to allow people to move around. People could kind of switch between castes. It was a little looser. Then things eventually changed, and the castes got much more rigid, where people were born into the caste and they could not leave. It kind of went backwards a little bit, right? They changed and then they went back. Caste became super rigid, and nowadays caste is kind of opening up and loosening up again, and discrimination based on the caste is illegal. So you cannot discriminate to, somebody based on the caste they were born in, right? So it kind of took a lot of those barriers away. So yeah, the caste system, something that's still around, but something that is, always evolving and changing. Question 4, what is the main idea behind Theravada Buddhism? That would be Theravada Buddhism emphasizes the Buddha's wisdom. Buddha's wisdom, right? So different schools of thought, they focus on different aspects of Buddha. And yeah, Theravada Buddhism focuses on the Buddha's wisdom. Question number 5, which ideas help support the growth of Hinduism? List two ideas that help support the growth of Hinduism were accepting of new gods and the flexibility in worship. So when Hinduism was developed, they didn't have really strict rules. And the way kind of their belief in God, it kind of allows for a lot of things. So if you were a person living in India and you believed in polytheism, you had all these different gods, the sun god and, the god of the wind and the god of the harvest, all these kind of things. You could become a Hindu and you didn't have to give up your old gods, right? Because in Hinduism, all gods are just the same god. They're just one god, Brahman. So there can be 100 million gods. It doesn't matter how many gods there are because it's all just one god in the end. They're just different forms of Brahman. So in Hinduism, you could bring your old gods with you. And that was important to people because, they believed that if you angered the gods, right, then bad things would happen to you. You wanted to keep these gods happy. So you didn't have to give up your old gods. You didn't have to forget about them or diss them, if you will, right? Bring your old gods with you. They're welcome in Hinduism because they're all just part of Brahman anyway. So that really allowed Hinduism to grow because people could easily join the religion without giving up their former beliefs. Also flexibility in worship, right? There's no like people have to come on Sunday and we'll all have to worship together. There's not really that. You have, people kind of worship independently. There's not really strict rituals or traditions. You can kind of bring your old traditions and rituals with you, the same like you could with your gods. So Hinduism allowed for great flexibility, right? You didn't have to believe a certain thing. You could believe in your old gods. You didn't have to have these certain traditions and rituals. You can kind of bring your old traditions and rituals, and that allowed for Hinduism to spread. Question number 6, who was Siddhartha Gautama and who did he become? Siddhartha was a Hindu prince before he became the Buddha, the founder of Buddhism. So Siddhartha, he was a Hindu prince. His father protected him from all pain and suffering for his entire life. He lived this life of luxury in a castle. And then one day he goes outside the castle and he sees that there's bad things in the world. There's suffering, there's pain, people are sick and dying. And this changes his life. He says, I've lived this life of luxury. I've never seen these things in the world. And now I'm going to figure out why. Why do people suffer? And that's what he did. He gave up his life of luxury. He went and studied and lived this life of poverty and lived a life of kind of like this wandering monk type guy. And he develops this idea of Buddhism, right? Yeah, the way to end suffering. Number 7, according to Hindu beliefs, what is karma and what does karma determine? According to Hindu beliefs, karma determines how a person is reborn. So, if you do good things, you'll have good karma, which means you will be reborn into something positive. You do bad things, you will be reborn into something negative, right? That's generally the idea. Number 8, according to the Buddha, a person could bring an end to desire and suffering by following what? That would be following the Eightfold Path. So, according to Buddha, the goal is you want to end suffering. In order to end suffering, you want to end desire. Desire meaning wanting things. Stop wanting all this stuff, wanting money, fame, possessions. Give all that stuff up. And the way to end desire, because it's easier said than done, right? The way to end desire would be to follow the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path was basically Buddha's 8 steps towards achieving an end to desire, right? Towards achieving an end to suffering. So you follow these 8 steps, you do these 8 things, and that's kind of, that'll lead you to kind of enlightenment. Number 9, is Hinduism a polytheistic or monotheistic religion? Kind of a trick question because Hinduism is both. It's polytheism because in Hinduism there are many different gods. There's a lot of different gods because, again, people could bring their old gods with them. You got a bunch of old gods, don't stop worshiping them. Just join us and, your gods can come with you. So there's a lot of different gods. But in the end, all of those gods are just one God anyway, right? It's all Brahman. Brahman is the god, and all those little gods that you got, they are just part of Brahman. They're different forms of Brahman. So in a way, there's many gods, but there's one god. It's also just Brahman in the end. So it's kind of it's both in a way. Question number 10, the last question. How do historians know that people lived in the Indus River Valley, raised cattle initially, but later turned to agriculture? That would be the Vedas. The Vedas provided a record of how Indo-Aryans lived. And yeah, the Vedas are very important texts that, again, they gave us insight into the life of people in the Indus River Valley. How did they live? How did they, what was their life like? What was their religion like? Gave us all kinds of insights. So the Vedas. And yeah, with that, that is the end of our study guide. So I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And yeah, good luck on the quiz. Bye, y'all. Till next time.